There is a photograph of her from 1968, a white sundress, a porch in San Diego, four small children at her feet. She is 30 years old. She is exhausted. She is the kind of young American mother the post-war food economy was designed to feed. Boxes of cereal in the cupboard, ground beef in the freezer, cream of mushroom soup in the pantry. There is another photograph taken almost 50 years later. She is 75. She is standing in the same San Diego sunlight in a sleeveless dress holding a glass jar of green juice. Her arms are lean, her skin is unlined, her hair is dark. An Italian magazine that printed that photograph in 2013 called her one of the most beautiful older women alive. The two photographs look like two different women. They are the same woman. Her name is Mimi Kirk. She is 87 years old today, and the story of what happened between those two photographs is the story I want to walk you through. Because what changed is not a face cream. It is not surgery. It is not a hormone. It is not a celebrity gene. What changed is the plate. Let me give you the result first. Mimi Kirk at 87 takes no daily medication. She has no diagnosed cardiovascular disease. Her blood work runs in ranges internists describe as athletic for any decade. She walks 2 to 4 miles every morning along the Pacific coast. She practices yoga 6 days a week. She published her most recent book, Modern Juicing, in 2017. She wrote a sex and longevity column for a women's magazine in her 70s. She was named in 2009 the sexiest vegan over 50. She was 71 when she won it. The judges reported she looked 45. I want to be careful here. The temptation with a case like Mimi's is to turn it into a slogan. The careful version is the case study version. We are going to look at the body. We are going to look at the plate. We are going to look at the markers. One body is not a study. One body, examined carefully and placed inside the published literature, becomes useful. Let me take you backwards. October 2007. Mimi is 69 years old. She has just received a routine blood panel. Her cholesterol is high. Her blood pressure is creeping. Her fasting glucose is at the upper edge of normal. The doctor has been talking about cholesterol medication, about a possible blood pressure pill, about the fact that her mother died of cardiovascular disease at 72 and her grandmother at 68. The doctor has said that this is the trajectory of an American woman in her late 60s on the standard plate. Here is where her story gets interesting. Mimi did not, in that moment, go home and start the medications. She went home and sat down at her kitchen table with a stack of books her daughter had given her. Her daughter, raw vegan for years by then, had been quietly leaving them in the apartment. The Hippocrates Health Institute book, the China Study, the work of Anne Wigmore. She had not read them. She read them in 3 days. What she read changed the calculation she had been making. The calculation that the body is breaking down because it is old, and the medications hold the breakdown in place. And the medications are what people in their 70s do. The books were suggesting another calculation. The body was not breaking down because it was old. It was breaking down because of what had been on the plate for 69 years, and the plate could be changed. She did not have a vegan kitchen. She had a standard American kitchen with a freezer full of meat and a cupboard full of processed food. She gave it all away that week. The meat, the cheese, the milk, the eggs, the bread, the pasta, the cookies, the boxed cereal, the canned soup, the frozen pizza, the ice cream, all of it. She walked it out of her apartment in 3 trips. What she did next is what distinguishes Mimi from the dozens of other women her age who read those same books and quietly return to the standard plate within 6 weeks. Mimi rebuilt the plate from the floor up. A blender base of leafy greens, frozen banana, a small handful of berries, a tablespoon of chia or flax, a date or two for sweetness, and water or coconut water. The smoothie is the breakfast, the juice is the hydration and the alkalinity. The smoothie is the meal. The two are separated by about an hour. The third piece is the large midday salad. The base is leafy greens, 3 or 4 kinds. On top, the rainbow, red bell pepper, orange carrot, yellow squash, purple cabbage, green cucumber, a small handful of sprouts. On top of the rainbow, the protein layer. Hemp seeds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, soaked walnuts, sometimes a quarter avocado or a small portion of sprouted lentils. The dressing is lemon juice, tahini, a small amount of olive oil or none, fresh herbs, garlic, sometimes a pitted date. She eats this salad slowly outside on the porch. She chews. The salad takes her 45 minutes. The fourth piece is dinner, which is the lightest meal of her day. Sometimes a smaller salad, sometimes a raw soup blended from avocado, cucumber, fresh herbs, lemon. Sometimes cut raw vegetables with a hummus or nut-based dip. Sometimes a small portion of a cooked dish, lightly steamed greens, a baked sweet potato, a bowl of vegetable soup. Mimi runs at about 80% raw, 20% gently cooked. Dinner is finished by 6 in the evening. She goes to bed at 10. She sleeps 8 hours. That is the plate. 4 pieces, juice, smoothie, salad, light dinner. She has eaten this plate with seasonal variation, but no structural variation for 18 years. The plate repeated 365 times a year for 18 years is the variable the body has built itself around. Now, I want to look at the body. Mimi, in her 80s, has a body that does not match the chart of a typical 87-year-old American woman. Her blood pressure runs in the range considered athletic in a woman 40 years younger. Her resting heart rate is in the high 50s. Her total cholesterol runs in numbers considered low for a healthy adult in their 30s. She has no diabetes, no diagnosed cardiovascular disease. Her bone density, scanned at age 77, came back at the level of a 40-year-old. Her balance is steady. She still does the full yoga sequence, including the inversions. Her cognitive recall is intact. She wrote her 4th book in her late 70s. She remembers the first juice she ever made in October 2007 on a kitchen counter she still owns. The chart contains a body that on most metrics looks 20 to 30 years younger than its chronological age. I want to slow down, I said. Her bone density at 77 came back at the level of a 40-year-old. The standard line on long-term plant-based eaters has been for 40 years that they will lose bone. The cohort data on that question has gotten more interesting in the last 10 years. The bone outcomes for long-term plant-based eaters depend almost entirely on whether the plate is heavy in leafy greens, seeds, and weight-bearing movement. Mimi's plate is heavy in all 3. I want to be careful because honestly, the studies do not all agree. There is a strand of the pro-me literature that shows bone density loss in plant-based eaters whose plates are heavy in juices and fruit and light in greens and seeds. The architecture matters. Mimi did not just go vegan. She went vegan inside an architecture that included the components the bone literature now identifies as protective. Back to the case. Mimi in 2015 was asked by her physician to come in for a comprehensive workup. The cholesterol came back at numbers below 150 total with HDL high and LDL low. The fasting glucose was in the 80s. The A1C was 5.1, excellent at any age. The inflammatory markers were low, kidney function good, liver function good. The bone scan came back at the equivalent of a 40-year-old. The cardiologist signed off without comment. Her physician said 2 things. The first was, whatever you are doing, do not stop. The second was, I cannot in good conscience write a single prescription for you. Mimi was 77. Now I want to walk through the science because the science is where the case becomes more than a single anecdote. On this question, with a sample of approximately 96,000 participants tracked across decades, the cohort in and around Loma Linda, California, eats along a wide spectrum from full plant-based to heavy meat-based. The data shows that participants eating closest to a full plant-based pattern have substantially lower rates of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers. The relative risk reductions for cardiovascular events range of 30 to 50%. Mimi's plate sits on the strict end of that spectrum. The second piece of evidence is more specific. A 2017 paper from the Buck Institute on Aging, published in Aging Cell, examined the relationship between dietary patterns rich in plant polyphenols and the rate of skin collagen breakdown over time. The paper found that participants on plates heavy in leafy greens had measurably lower markers of skin aging, including reduced glycation end products and reduced oxidative damage to dermal collagen. The mechanism, simplified, is that polyphenols quench the free radicals that over decades break down structural proteins in skin. Mimi's plate contains polyphenols at probably 10 to 15 times. The third piece of evidence is the work of David Sinclair's lab at Harvard on sirtuin activation. Sinclair's group identified a class of plant compounds, resveratrol from grapes, fisetin from strawberries. A plate heavy in these compounds mimics, at the molecular level, some of the longevity favorable signals the body generates during a fasting state. Mimi's plate contains all four compound classes daily. I want to be honest. The science is suggestive, it is not conclusive. There is no controlled trial in which one group of 70-year-old women was placed on Mimi's plate and another on the standard American plate, and the outcomes compared at 85. That trial does not exist. The case is built on cohort data, mechanistic studies, and on the case files of people like her who have run the experiment on themselves. Before I go further, I want to point you toward the protocol Mimi has refined over 18 years. The architecture of the plate, the timing, the rotation of foods. We have organized the architecture into a step-by-step protocol, the same architecture Mimi published in Modern Juicing and Raw Vitalize that is most underappreciated. She did not change at 40 or 50 or 60. The age at which she changed is statistically an age at which most people in her situation do not change. The age at which the standard line is, it is too late. The damage is done. The trajectory the conventional model would have predicted at 69 was the trajectory her mother had been on. Her mother was dead at 72. Mimi, who took the same blood work at 69, is alive and unmedicated at 87. That comparison is the comparison I want to leave you with. The body, even at 69, even at 75, even at 80, retains the capacity to respond to a changed input. The plate is the input. The body is the system with rising cardiovascular markers. To an 87-year-old woman, the modern medical model does not know what to do with because the model is built around the assumption that the trajectory is fixed by age 65. Her case is not everyone's case. The plate alone will not reverse. There are women on medications they cannot safely come off without supervised medical guidance. Under medical supervision is the phrase that needs to be there every time. Mimi made her change with her physician's support. She did not stop her medications cold. She simply added the plate and let the blood work panel by panel tell the doctor what the body was doing. The doctor, panel by panel, removed the medications the body no longer needed. What her story asks of the viewer is this: not go on a raw vegan diet, not buy a juicer. Are you running the same calculation your doctor's running? Breaking down because it is old and the medications hold it in place. The one Mimi sat down with on a kitchen table in San Diego in October 2007 that says the body is responding to what is on the plate, and the plate can be changed. That is the question. The plate is the variable. The body over decades becomes, I read the comments. Tell me in the comments what you ate for breakfast this morning. Not as a confession, as a starting point. The case works at the level of the breakfast plate because the breakfast plate, repeated every morning, is the first variable. Her grandchildren came next. The body that adopts a new pattern is far more likely to keep the pattern when other bodies around it are doing the same. There is a photograph of her taken last summer on the San Diego coast where she walks every morning. She is 86. She is standing in a long dress against a low gold light. She is holding a glass of green juice. She is smiling closed-mouthed at the camera, the way she has smiled in every photograph for the last decade. The caption next to the photograph when a women's magazine printed it last year was a single sentence. Mimi has used it as the closing line of every public talk she has given since. It is never, she said, too late to start. If this story changed how you view the potential of your own health and the food on your plate, please subscribe and like our channel. We are uncovering the truths about longevity that have been buried for too long. Cultivate your future. The next chapter of human potential will be revealed soon.